Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle will be back with us shortly. He is having a slight connection issue, but John here to get us rolling with Rick Bozich. Going to talk a myriad of things, including Indiana football's, it was a lot of things this past weekend in Indianapolis. We'll start there. And it was a tale of two halves. Obviously, one of the most overused cliches in sports, but I think the game that took place in Lucas Oil Stadium was exactly that. Louisville completely ran the table in quarters 1 and 2, and Indiana came back. They countered with an onside kick, recovered it, and immediately stole back momentum, and they pretty much carried it the rest of the way up until the goal line stand. And so it was very interesting to see how Indiana responded being down 21-0, and to see them have that success. They ultimately came up with the loss, but I think there's definitely some positives you can take away, even though there, are definitely some negatives as well.
Yeah, this might be unfair to say this, but I walk away from a game like that and say, it's part of the DNA of Indiana. Has so many games like that they could win if they do one or two more plays, and then they lose them. And the problem is they don't have a great margin of error to get to 6 wins to go to a bowl game. And when you lose one like that, then the pressure builds, Yep. And Louisville, on the flip side, that's been the difference in their program over the last, they win more of those kinds of games than they lose. And really, you can look at Louisville's team this season and say they could have lost the Georgia Tech game, but they won. And they could have lost the Indiana game, but they won. And now they're sitting at 3-0. With Boston College coming in this weekend with a really good chance to go 4-0, and their whole fan base is engaged and jacked up, and probably looking down the road a little bit to when Notre Dame comes in a couple weeks. And at Indiana, the selling job goes on where you have to, get people to buy in to think that things are going to get better.
Yeah. And then speaking of, the fan buy-in, it was very evident in Lucas Oil, the fan differential. I've seen many people think that it was about a 60-40 split in favor of Louisville for fans, which if you're Indiana, even though that was a neutral site game, you got to be wondering what went wrong with the marketing of this game. Why can't more fans buy into this? And I know that it's a product of what's happened over the past couple of years, but it was interesting to see as Jim Coyle gets ready to rejoin us, the difference between the fan bases in Lucas Oil Stadium this past weekend.
Yeah, I estimated it was about 65% Louisville fans. I was surprised. Neither the attendance wasn't listed on the box score. And on Monday, when I looked in the Louisville and IU site, it's not listed. And I asked somebody at IU on the drive home, and they told me the crowd was 22,000 something. I thought it looked like more than that myself. But the problem was, first of all, it's an extra expense. It wasn't part of the season ticket package for either team. Secondly, I've heard from people that the tickets were a little pricey. Thirdly, it's a noon game. For Louisville fans, that's a 2-hour drive. For people in Bloomington, it's an hour drive, and you're not going to get many students to pay extra money to ride up to Indianapolis to watch the football team play for a noon game. I mean, it should have been a later in the day game, and you give people more time to get up there. So it just wasn't executed well. It was a great venue, and it was a great game, but the atmosphere was lacking for sure, and it's probably part of the reason why the series is ending.
Yeah, Indiana buying their way out of that, costing them $1 million. Will that be beneficial to them in the long run? I'm not sure, because it was a hell of a game. It looked like it was going to be terrible. It looks like Jeff Brom was just going to run away with things, and then Indiana's defense shored things up, and the offense came to life. And it became a really fun game, and it got real fun for about 60 seconds. And then that balloon, the air out of that went out of that balloon real quick. It was like somebody stuck a needle in it.
I criticized it on Saturday, and I'll still criticize it. The problem with that play was it was so slow to develop, first of all. And secondly, we talked about here for 2 or 3 years about what the issue is with IU. The offensive line isn't great. So you're asking the offensive line to do something that odds are they're not going to be able to do, which is just power forward. Their running game isn't that good, and get 18 inches from a running back. Odds are that's not going to happen. If you're going to run that, I would have gone with Jackson sneaking it. Better chance for him just to, quick snap and go before the defense can react. That play was over before before Henderson got the ball. It was over. They were in the backfield. And, otherwise, got to come up with some kind of a trick play there to get Indiana to get Louisville to suck in on the dive play and release a tight end and hit him or roll him out and run in or whatever. But it's just, as I said earlier before you got on the air, it's so many good things Indiana did. They did a lot of bad things, but in the end, it comes down a little bit to program DNA. Indiana always loses games like that, and Louisville has built its program up to the point where they win games like that. They already won
all the way back to the Fiesta Bowl against Alabama in whatever year that was. That was a shocker. Louisville was like the third alternate to get to go to that game,
right?
Because that's back when Arizona did not have a law. I think it was to do with Martin Luther King holiday, maybe. Correct. I think. So, but they go into the game with Alabama and they win it 34-7. And so they come bursting onto the scene. Howard Schnellenberger breathed life into that program with that. I mean, that win. That set that I think that set their sails afloat. I mean, not that they weren't going that direction, but man, you beat an Alabama on national TV, and I mean beat them. Whoo, that did it. And then they have had their ups and downs, but they have been a program that has had success. Big difference.
It's part of mindset. Mindset is important. Mindset of players and mindset of fans. You teach fans to expect to win. Indiana fans are conditioned to think, okay, when's somebody going to pull the football away and Charlie Brown's going to whiff on the kick again? Because it happens over and over again, right? I mean, it happens over and over again, except for 2020 and 2019. But even that, they go to the bowl game against Tennessee and give up, a 10-point lead in the last 5 minutes. Or the Pinstripe Bowl against Duke, where the field goal actually was good, but it was ruled wide. I mean, I can give you a million examples. They play Michigan into double overtime and they don't finish the deal. I mean, we can go on and on. The only Penix diving for the pylon is one of the few times it came out IU's way, and that's what they have to change. And I'll say this: they are better than I thought they would be this year. I mean, they've got some pieces. I mean, I think Jackson can be, for a guy with this year and 3 more years, he can be a good quarterback if they can build the offensive line. The offensive line is slightly better, but it's still not good enough. The receivers probably could be a little bit better.
Donovan McCulley is really turning out to be a hell of a receiver.
He's coming on. They need better backs. When Coleman was there and Jordan Howard was there, they need to find a guy like that somehow. And I know there aren't many of them, but they don't have a guy who has
the line also is a big problem with that.
Yeah, but they don't have a guy with elite burst right now. But anyway, I mean, and defensively, they're solid. I mean, if they play to their best, they can hang in there. They showed it, obviously against Ohio State in the second half against Louisville. But there's going to be more of these games that are going to come down to like who can make the plays in the fourth quarter, whether it's going to be next week at Maryland, or whether it's going to be Rutgers at home, or Michigan State at home, or at Illinois, or at Purdue, and they're going to have to win their share of them. They are. I mean, that's what it's come down to at this point, and they can't. When they get 4th and 18 inches, they got to make it. I mean, they do. They find out a way to make it.
Absolutely. Quarterback sneak all day long, twice on Sunday, man. Couldn't have stopped it.
Out of a timeout.
He could have leaped up. He's 6'3". He has the length to just reach and score that. But I'm not a fan of defensive head coaches. I just always prefer a head coach to be more of a, and I know he should be both, but to come from a more of an offensive background. and bring in a defensive dude. Tom Allen was a defensive dude, is a defensive dude.
It seems like this Matt Guerreri guy they brought in on defense has been a young guy with a lot of he's got a lot of adrenaline about him, and he seems to be resonating
doing
with
well.
players. Yeah, he seems like
they're
he's
doing very well.
Yeah, but offensively, I mean, you can look at the whole season and say, when you look back on like what were they trying to do against Ohio State? That made no sense at all. In retrospect,
and how much would it have benefited had the decision on quarterback been made prior to game one, getting all the snaps? I'm not saying they win the Ohio State game, but maybe you make it a hell closer than it was.
Right.
Then you don't lose this game to Louisville. Now, this game was a tale of two halves. Indiana could not stop Louisville in the first half. Tom Allen alluded to the fact that there was a lot of holding going on, which he doesn't complain a ton. So when he said something as the way he did, apparently stuck his hands out and said there was a lot of that going on, which there was a big difference in the second half. But how do you make a team stop holding?
I guess you keep complaining to the refs and hope that they start calling it. I don't know. I before you got back on, John and I were talking, I've been talking to a bunch of people about. It's hard for me to tell what is and isn't holding anymore in college football. It seems like every offensive lineman.
You can call it every play.
Yeah, it's like is it come by where they grab you? You're allowed to grab underneath the armpits, but not on top of the jersey. I mean. It seems like for every lineman, especially on pass blocking plays, the first move is to get 2 fists full of jersey. So I don't know. I need to talk to an official sometime and help me explain what's going on, because I agree with you. I mean, when they tackle a guy to the ground or bring him down to the ground one hand, we all know that's holding. Those are the more obvious ones. But the jersey grabbing, I don't know.
And I'm not suggesting a change is coming or should be coming, but can you imagine the Indiana fan base is such a conservative fan base. Can you imagine somebody like Deion Sanders at an Indiana?
I can imagine if it's sold and presented the right way and say,
and I mean by being just flamboyant.
Are you tired of winning one game against Ohio State for 40 years? Are you tired of winning one game against Michigan for 40 years? Going to try a different way to do it. So who's excited? Who's bought in? Who's down with this? I don't see it happening because there aren't that many Deion Sanders out there.
No. Hell, there's only one Deion Sanders. And that was a hell of a game. I know you didn't watch that because I watched it to the end and it got over at 2:30 a.m.
Right. No, I didn't stay up that late. I can't watch this week either because the Colorado-Oregon game is the same time as the Louisville-Boston College game.
Well, that's not good. I saw in your piece yesterday you did a 4-week reset of your expectations on the football season for Indiana. That has not changed, I don't believe.
Right now, I still got them at 3-9,
which is going to be tough for a lot of fans to take that are holding on to that hope of bowl eligibility. I've said they have the talent to not only win 6 games, but to have won more than 6 games. And we keep kind of seeing that as it goes a little bit further, whether they come around or not. And it's not just the players. It's the coaches have to make the right calls at the right times. You can't make those mistakes. They've got to now go win a game, at least a game on the road that they're not supposed to win. And that's if you take care of business at home against teams like Wisconsin, even Rutgers, for that matter. Those are no longer. As a matter of fact, I went through ESPN's projection for the rest of the season on every IU game. They're not projected to win a single game the rest of the year on their current projection, and that projects out weeks and a half. Yeah, the rest of their season, yeah.
Akron. They're projected to beat Akron.
Oh, I'm sorry. Post Akron, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised. They play Maryland, which I was kind of high on them early. They haven't really been that impressive this year, but it's a road game. Tough to project Indiana to win a road game in the Big Ten. Then they play Michigan. Where's that one? On the road again, right? Don't they have back-to-back road games?
Yes, Maryland and Michigan are both on the road.
And then it's a bye week, right? And then I think
yes,
they come back.
when Indiana's bye is.
Yeah, then they come back for the final six, which is I don't know them in order. I know the last three are Purdue and Michigan State and Illinois. I think those are the three most winnable games, and two of those three are on the road.
They've got to go to Illinois, which is going to be tough. You've got to go to Purdue, which Purdue is not looking good.
No, they're not.
They're looking very beatable. Well, hell, they've been beaten at home already, although it was the first game of the year by a good team.
Syracuse beat them pretty soundly, right?
Yep. Which that one surprised me. I thought that they would get it together by the third game after beating Virginia Tech on the road and come home and get a win, but they didn't. And so I'm like, wow. So that West is weird because you've got a lot of new coaches. Illinois not doing as well as I thought that they would start after the year they had last year. So is that now a winnable road game for Indiana? I don't know. Every road game is very, very tough, but it's one that could be. So they have the opportunity. They have the skill to do it. Whether or not they get it done, that's going to be another story.
But what you got to do, you got to win one you're not supposed to win. I mean,
absolutely.
Go and win one on the road that you're a 7 or 10 point underdog and win that. That's how you get people excited about football again, or beat Wisconsin at home. You'll get people talking about something like that. Beating Akron's not going to do anything for them. They have to do it. And I will say that's not a gimme. Akron played Kentucky tough for about 2.5 quarters.
How did their quarterback get out of that one play where they had him dead to rights, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and the next thing you know, he's loose and throwing a freaking 30-yard pass?
Right. They got to win this game. Beat Maryland on the road next week. That'll get some people back. And you're saying win one that you're not supposed to win. And that's what they've done for a couple of years. I mean, really, the last 2 years, they haven't won any. I guess you could say Michigan State last year. They weren't supposed to win that one, but Michigan State was not a good team. So beat somebody you're not supposed to beat. I've said about this before. I mean, you look around, Purdue's beating Ohio State. Iowa beat Ohio State. What? Other people beat Penn State. They beat Michigan, upset them. Indiana never beats any of those teams ever. It's other than that one win against Penn State during the COVID season.
Had the shot, boy, in the COVID season against Ohio State. They, that was close.
I've seen Kentucky beat Alabama. I've seen Kentucky beat LSU. I've seen Kentucky beat Florida. I haven't seen them beat Georgia in a while, but I mean, you get what I'm talking. I've seen Louisville beat Florida State. You got to win one of those games. It can't always be mission impossible.